Hello everyone and welcome back to Fort Camelot, or should I say Fortress Camelot. And this is me jumping in with the very first comment I wanted to talk about from the last episode. So first of all, I really appreciated all the crazy comments from you guys in the last episode. So I will go into some of them, but starting with Mr. The ever awesome, I should say. Who's basically there whenever it is about to talk about stuff, and this is the beautiful DL Fendel, and he came up with a point that is very interesting. Actually, it is very interesting because he came up with the point that I called this Fort Camelot, and he said basically this should be Fortress Camelot. And I will quickly read out what he said as soon as I found the comment. There it is, because that makes sense, and then I will also explain how I will deal with that. So first of all, superb, but I really think the name is wrong. It should be Fortress Camelot, not fort. At least in English, a fort implies a relatively small outpost stronghold, like a cavalry fort in the Old West. A fortress is more imposing, more formidable, and more in keeping with the land in the kingdom. It also implies that there is a town attached, unlike a fort, which is more isolated. It might be linguistically technically accurate, but to me this is a fortress. So yes, it is a fortress. There is no question about it. I don't even know. I might reconsider. I consider renaming it, actually. I will see how it works, but basically, as I've talked about this now, so if I'm going to rename it, you will see that potentially already in this episode, that I have done this, because I'm pre-recording this a little bit. I did record this episode right after your comments, so this is quite, yeah, you know. But well, this is the first episode, what I wanted to talk about. I think there are so many other comments, like, for example, the one from Webjorn Fortune. I hope I just pronounced that somewhat correctly. He said, really nice so far. You should check out the Netflix series The Last Kingdom for some more inspiration. They have some really nice visuals for crowded medieval cities, and even if this were long before the Black Death, the looks of it shows typically a typical breeding ground for pandemics in general, as well as being great series, of course. Keep it up. Good point. I just watched into it, or just looked into it for a moment, and I just checked some trailers and stuff. It looks good. It might be a tiny little bit too glamorous for me. I don't know. It is dirty enough, but somehow, I don't know. Yeah, you may want to find some influence in it, but yeah, there's a little problem with all this kind of stuff. But I'm going to explain that in today's episode. But before we go on with the comments, guys, just a very quick note. As you can see, we will start building around this coast area. So in the Arabian area, I kind of avoided doing this until the very end, and it was really annoying to then do all the shit around the coaster. So basically this time I forced myself to do this at the very beginning, to make the whole queue area and exit area and all this kind of stuff at the very beginning. Good news, I did hold up to this plan, and I actually finished what I've started, unlike Mr. Vader and Mr. Kylo Ren. At least we don't know yet, but I finished this, and I can say now it looks decent, but we will talk about this a little bit more at the end of this episode. But yeah, just as a little explanation, what is going on in this episode will be basically the building around the entrance area. It won't be finished at all with this episode. There's still a lot more to come. But for those of you who have been, or who are on Twitter and who are following me, they will have already seen how this looks in the end. Anyways. Then we have the next comment, which is by Martin Albertson, I guess it is. Amazing night. It looks difficult to make it well done. Wait, it looks difficult to make well done. I'm missing a comma or a point there. Anyways. You can name the coaster Robin Hood. Great episode. Have a good Sunday and see you next time. PS, the Gears of Fear is a good idea for this part of the park. Yes, and thanks, but Robin Hood might not be the best name for it. I already said it will be more or less like the Black Death, and potentially this is also the name. Maybe I'm going to look for an old German name of it or something, because that would make sense. But anyways, now we are getting a little bit more into the coaster, which is basically what we need to talk about. Single rail concept. I was confusing things. No, I actually wasn't, but I was confusing while explaining what I'm doing. So the track in the game is basically, I guess, the raptor track, if I'm not wrong. Or is it the T-Rex track? See, I'm confused again. No, I'm building the T-Rex track. So, well, the thing is, the current coasters we see, Wonder Woman, for example, or the one Railblazer, are made as raptor tracks. And there were a few people out there, for example, Greifer 2003, who said RMC has two types of single rail concept, the T-Rex track and the raptor track. Wonder Woman and Railblazer are raptor tracks, while you're building a T-Rex track. Sorry for Klugscheißen, which means to be knowing everything better in German, just so. The thing is, people mentioned that the one in the game is really accurate to the T-Rex track. I'm not quite sure. As far as I could research, guys, there are some issues about this one. So starting from the supports, they are a little bit weird. Also going a little bit about the coaster car, which is, I think, pretty accurate, at least for the level of accuracy that Planet Coaster goes for. Also, I think in avoiding some legal issues and stuff. But there are also some other problems, like the mid-course brake run, or the which I don't have, but if you would build one. Also, the brake system itself, and also push tires and stuff. They all look a little bit weird. So, in the end, to me, it is not that accurate, but in the end, actually, I wanted to build this one because of the looks of it. And I wanted to build a single rail, and I think it just somehow works. Hopefully. Anyways. Then we have a next comment, which is from the Rabbit, weirdly spelled, I have to say. This is an awkwardly long one, but I have to read that out because it's really interesting, and this is potentially the last one I'm going to talk about because I also want to talk a little bit about the video. Anyways, I think it's just fun to talk about all the thing. So there we go. This is I mean, it's basically inside. No, it's not. Oh wait, I need to reopen it. Because I wanted to answer to this, and I did already answer with a comment, but I wanted to clarify this now for those of you who were misunderstanding me as well. So, I give you that a lot of castles were actually very small and barely more than a tower or fortified house. But watchtowers and castles are not the same thing. A castle is defined as a fortified building that is also a residence. A watchtower is a tower used as a lookout for an area that is not meant for living in it. So while there might be soldiers staying in a watchtower for a while, they are not stationed there permanently. The king or lord or whatever, he might be sent them there to look out because that area might not be as visible from where he actually lives in his castle. This is usually only the case for very large pieces of land. In the time of the Roman Empire, for example, there was a huge area that was controlled from one central point, and therefore a lot of watchtowers were built everywhere. Since the medieval period there were a lot of fairly small kingdoms, there wasn't as much need for actual watchtowers. A lot more was there a need for a lot of castles, where the local lord or king or whatever actually lived and maybe had a few knights stationed as well. So they built whatever they could afford, which a lot of times was just a house with a tower at the one end and a slightly larger tower with living quarters in it or something of this sort. Many also couldn't afford building with stone, so sometimes a castle could be made entirely out of wood, which would be a fortress, a fortified thing then, or whatever it's called. Anyways, I'm probably already talking too much about it, but I get really into this sort of thing, and being German, I'm very picky about facts. That's right. Germans are always picky about facts, and we even forget about doing stuff actually, and we just keep on talking it before we do stuff. That's also why we haven't had a government for like half a year. Anyways, that's a different topic. If you want to see more about this, a lot better president than I could write it, you should check out the channel Shadiversity. He has a lot of videos about the medieval era, and actually one of video specifically about the difference between castle and watchtower. Also, I take a great deal of inspiration from all the illustrations and animations for when I'm building something medieval. I hope you find it as enlightening as I have. Take care. So, damn, that was a long comment. Anyways, I already talked about the fact that I have all the informations actually from the channel Shadiversity, which is a brilliant one, and I will link that down in the description below because it's a beautiful channel if you're into medieval architecture and stuff. But I thought I have explained that well enough. But actually, you know, you are just supporting my point here, because I was talking about watchtowers being created in the Roman Empire, as you stated. Totally clear, they had to control a large land. I mean, half of Europe was just reigned by the Roman Empire, and so obviously they couldn't just build castles and big cities everywhere, and to control that area without having satellites and airplanes and drones, they definitely needed something else, which then were the watchtowers, obviously. But then in the medieval time, as you said as well, there were some kingdoms which then started to capture some of the old watchtowers, and as you said, because they haven't had too many other materials, they took the watchtower and changed the function of it. And this is where my idea came from. That means we don't have that many watchtowers, because those of the watchtowers that were actually there have been captured and redone into actual castles or fortresses or whatsoever. And as you said, they didn't even need to build new ones because it was too small. And this is the only point I wanted to make. In the medieval time, there were barely any new watchtowers built because they were just not needed. And those who have been there for a longer time already from the Roman Empire and stuff, they basically have been reinvented into a castle. So in the end, my actual statement of saying, well, most of the watchtowers in the medieval time are actually castles and vice versa, still holds true for the fact that time being they just used all the watchtowers and refunctioned them, or just redone them into castles or big houses or little strongholds, right? And that was the only point I was about to make. So I hope that enlightens a little bit what I was talking about in the last episode. And I feel I should talk a little bit more about what is going on in the background, because the episode is already about to end in 2 minutes time. So as you can see, I have built the first little house on the left hand side of this entrance area. Also, I did spend some time building the little chasm, which is actually next to the coaster, and this also shows how I want to make the little interaction with the coaster and also with the river rapids work in the end, and I believe that this will be a good one. Yeah, also I want to talk about this little building I made on the left hand side of this bigger one where the station actually is located in. So this might be the only little building I did without a second floor which is bigger than the first floor. I'm going to talk a whole lot about this thing in the next episode, because this is a very, very important episode in terms of architecture in the medieval area, or era, I should say. But for today, I just want to talk about what's going on in the next episodes, because I have mentioned that this medieval area will be a whole lot more dirty and, you know, look just a little bit more washed out, dirty, I don't know, broken down. But first of all, starting with the whole thing, I will just lay out the whole thing. I will then redo the whole thing a little bit more and make this all look a little bit more broken down. I will change textures and stuff later on. I will also do some more little broken down areas, as well as going a little bit more into, yeah, doing some more foliage stuff everywhere to make it all look a little bit more overgrown. But for the beginning, don't worry about too much that the buildings all look kind of fancy, because I just want to make the whole buildings finished before I can go then into making them destroyed, since I really want to make them as blueprints this time for the workshop. So please don't get me wrong, I'm holding still up to what I described in the last episode. It will be a more dirty area, but yeah, you can't see that very much in this episode or in the next couple of ones. Anyhow, this should be it. The episode is over, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, leave a like if you liked it. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it. It helps me out, and so on and so on and so on. I don't need to talk that. I hate it. Have a good one, guys. Until next time, bye bye.